Hello, and welcome back to the Nats Talk podcast. I am your host, Kevin Nibley, and we are sponsored by Old DC Apparel. Head on over to shopoldDC.com for the latest and greatest in DC fan gear. They have a couple new baseball shirts up. Excited about the team being more competitive this year for sure. And the mayor, Miss Bowser herself, is wearing the hat out at public events. So that's pretty cool. ShopOldDC.com for the newest and coolest DC fan gear. And for the podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Nats Talk Podcast. That's also our handle on X. And if you search Nats Talk Podcast, the audio version is on every major podcast platform. And it is worth saying, we don't do this for a living here. I'm a television editor. I make films. I do things like that. I'm not a professional broadcaster. I'm a fan who does this for fun through the Nats Talk website. So if you are able to hit a like button, hit a subscribe button, give us some love, give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to. If you're listening to the audio version, please do that. It helps us out, helps me out, finding time each week to do this show. So we really appreciate that. Okay, so been a couple weeks since I last joined you. I think the last time we did this was after one of those awful bullpen meltdowns against the Phillies. So in much better spirits now. And that's actually looked pretty decent the last couple weeks. Foster Griffin's turning into a revelation. And Luis Garcia, oh my Lord. I mean, I'll be honest, I thought at the beginning of the season putting him at first base was an awful idea, and I could not have been more wrong. I mean, he is turned into everything you'd want there from a hitting perspective. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks leading up to the deadline. I see a lot of talk about whether or not they should trade Griffin. And, it's going to be a tough sell to a fan base who hasn't seen a lot of winning in the last 7 years. But at the same time, this team's going to hover around 500. Selling high on a guy like Griffin now could be, an amazing move. Speaking of moves and things to do with the organization, the MLB draft is coming up this weekend. And that leads right into our guest. We are joined by Savannah McCann. I'm sure you all remember her as the sideline reporter at MASN. And what you might not know is she's also a draft expert, prospect expert, done a lot of work for Baseball America. So we went on for a little bit, broke it up into 2 episodes. But this episode here today, we are going to focus mostly on this weekend's draft. And without any further ado, Savannah McCann. So right now we are joined by a face familiar to most Nats fans, baseball reporter Savannah McCann. Savannah, thanks so much for taking the time with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk some Nats baseball.
Cool. Now, most of our audience knows you from your work with MASN and the Nationals, but you've also covered all 30 teams and done work with Baseball America, specializing in prospects, and you also have a Substack. Just let us know kind of how we can keep up with you, how we can follow your work.
Yeah, so I've been taking a little bit of a break here, but once this draft is coming up, I'm really excited about this year's class, and I know we're going to get into it. So post-draft, you can find all of my work on my Substack, which is just my name, Savannah McCann, or I'll be tweeting out the links. It's at SavJay, SavJaye. So there, or on TikTok, you'll be able to find some new videos coming soon.
Cool. Now the draft's coming up, and I want to get into it. For Nats fans who only start paying attention like in July, I'm definitely one of those. How would you describe this 2026 class? Is it strong, weak, heavy in one position? What are your thoughts?
This is a great draft class. There is a ton of talent and there's a lot of depth into this class. So it's one where you don't need to be picking one or two to get the guy. I think there's a lot of them in this draft class. College bats are a big one. There's a ton of talent there. And then college pitching, this is a little bit of a down class for them, but prep pitchers, I love a lot of names there. But there's just so much talent in this draft class that honestly, I don't think you could go wrong, which is a good and a bad thing because when you have this much talent, you can kind of make a decision one way or the other, and someone will tell you that you made the best choice, and someone will tell you, well, I would have went this way instead, and you're probably
Mhm.
both right.
No, definitely. So you don't think there's a clear-cut guy at number one like a couple of years ago with Paul Skeens or Dylan Cruz? It's not that kind of a draft.
Not that kind of a draft in the sense of it's obvious of course they're going to take this guy. Now there is Rock Chalowski, he's the
Mhm.
UCLA shortstop. He's been the guy, if there is one of this draft class, that has been mocked one to Chicago pretty much since last year's draft.
Mhm.
So that's kind of been the reoccurring name that they'll take Chalowski and that's going to be number one. But then, slowly you start to hear whispers that maybe the White Sox don't want to pay him number one money, so they might pick somebody else. And with the depth in this class, maybe he doesn't go 1-1. So I wouldn't be shocked if he goes one. That's kind of been
Mhm.
what everyone's been thinking. But I'm also not going to be as shocked as maybe when the Nats took Eli Willits, where it's like,
Yeah.
what the heck? That's who they picked?
No, definitely. Now I'm for fans who are kind of casual to the draft process, maybe they're more familiar with like the NFL draft or NBA draft. What are kind of some of the you mentioned like slot money, things like that. What are some of the differences in the Major League Baseball draft, and what are some mistakes that fans make when they try to kind of get into these mock drafts and lists and things like that?
I think it's tough because in the NFL draft, you're drafting for need. You're
Mhm.
taking what your team needs right now. Whereas in the major leagues, like in baseball, you're just not. That's not the case. You can't bet on a guy that's going to come out of college and be ready tomorrow because there's just still such a jump, even when you're pitching
Mhm.
or batting in the SEC, the highest level of them all. You're still not ready for the major leagues tomorrow. So it's tough to look at, okay, everyone says this guy's the top talent. Why wouldn't you take him number one overall? It's like, well, because he's still probably 2 years away. Maybe
Mhm.
he's 8 months away, and that's rushing him. So it's tough to say you can look at a mock draft or you can look at prospect rankings even and say, well, if everyone says he's the top guy, why wouldn't you take him number one overall? So I think there's not a one-to-one comparison. And even when you're looking at prospect rankings or like the numbers assigned to draft prospects, there's a risk evaluation that a lot of people put on. I know Baseball America does it, so I'll
Mhm.
use them as an example, where you might have a guy that, is a 60 on the rankings out of 80, which is
Mhm.
great. And you're like, okay, that's a solid player. Oh, but he has an extreme risk. Okay, so then do you go with the guy that's the 50, but there's no risk for him?
Mhm.
So you really have to balance how risky do you want to be? How much do you believe in your player development? And really what you think you do well versus what your team needs today.
Definitely. Now the MLB draft combine, does that actually change boards at this point? Or do you feel like teams are kind of already baked in with the guys they're looking at?
That's another huge difference. And I think the NFL combine's kind of moving this way where the top guys aren't participating at the
Mhm.
NFL level and especially on the Major League Baseball. They're not competing in the combine the same way that it used to be for the NFL versus the MLB combine, I think is more for guys, maybe some high school players, guys that were injured that want to show, hey, I'm okay, look how well I can do XYZ. Or for guys that are maybe on the fringe and are going to get drafted, or jump from round 19 to 14
Mhm.
versus let me show you why I should be picked 1-1.
No, definitely. Now, MLB Pipeline mocked Kentucky shortstop Tyler Bell to the Nats, and they called their spot a possible college bat spot. As a Nats fan, when I look at the team right now, I mean, bats don't really seem to be the problem. But if you were advising the Nats at 11, you mentioned not taking need. Do you just take the best player available, or a team like the Nats who really could use some pitching? I mean, do you think their need for pitching would, even though these guys are years away, would that influence their choice there?
If you're asking, there's two ways to answer it. So first I'll go to guess what the Nats are going to do.
Hmm.
I kind of look back at what Boston did a few years ago. And one thing that Boston does really well is they're able to produce great pitchers. So they draft a pitcher well and then they're able to develop him really well. So I
Hmm.
wouldn't be completely shocked if the Nats go the pitcher route, just because that's something that Boston did and now that regime is here in
Hmm.
Washington. So I wouldn't be completely surprised if they go that route based off of history. Now, the second part of this, if you're asking me what I would do if I was put in charge, There are just too many good college bats in this
Mhm.
draft to miss on. I think you take the chance and hope that that's a guy that's competing for your team here pretty soon, especially now that they're contending sooner versus we're years away from that. So let's get,
Sure.
a high school guy with a lot of upside. So I kind of like that Tyler Bell pick. I think
Hmm.
it's a good name to watch. Baseball America just put out Ace Reese. He's the third baseman out of Mississippi State.
Hmm.
Their most recent mock draft had him going to the Nationals, and I really like that pick. So I wouldn't be upset with either of those names, but I think when the Nats draft, you could read a bunch of different mock drafts, see a bunch of different names, and I don't know if anyone's really going to have the answer at that point in the draft because there's so many different directions.
So with the Nats contending now, or getting closer to contention, do you think they should be trying to add players who move quickly that can be up in a, college players, right? Who, could help the team in the next year or two, or do you think they should just, does that not matter? Should they be taking just the best player, whether it's 1 year away or 6 years away?
I think it's kind of like the not sexy answer, but I think you take the high upside guy. I think you take best available, that someone that you see fits within your farm system, not because you have a need for their position, but I really like his tools. I think we can work with that. So whether that's a guy that's a year away or whether that's a guy that just came out of high school and needs a little bit of work,
Mm,
I think teams need to go based off of what they know best and what they know that they can develop versus picking a guy that maybe, and I think the Nats have done this in previous drafts where they take the guy that's like, oh, he has so much power and he has so much upside and he has this and that, but we have no idea how to develop that. So he kind of just plateaus. And then it becomes a disappointment when it doesn't pan out, when he doesn't
mhm.
match your farm system style at all. So I think it's pick a guy with high upside and pick a guy that you know how to develop.
No, definitely. Just in terms of some names that you threw out a few, is there anyone in this class that you really like that you haven't mentioned yet?
I know I keep talking about the college bats, but let me talk about a college pitcher really
Sure, sure,
quickly.
sure, sure.
Peterson's a pitcher out of Florida. I love him. I think he is going to be really, really good. So I'd be really excited to see the Nats take him.
Sure, sure.
Ian Peterson is the pitcher I'd like to see them take. I think he'd be a great fit. I'd really like to see what this organization can do with a pitcher.
Mhm.
However, I think if there is a safe answer, the safe answer is either Reese or Bell or one of the college bats.
All right. Thanks a lot to Savannah. I really appreciate it. She likes Peterson in the pitcher spot. I know that Gio Rojas seems to be a popular name around the Nats talk land. But yeah, I mean, these guys usually are far enough out. You got to just take the player you like, right? You're not drafting for a need, down the stretch or for next season. I mean, these guys are years out. But anyway, that's our episode. As always, please support nats.talkdcsports.com. Please support shopoldDC.com. They keep the lights on. Somewhat interesting series against the Yankees coming up. They haven't been playing all that well. Maybe the Nats can take 2 of 3. It'll be interesting to see if they pitch Cavalli on Sunday after, his rough start last time out, probably due to some of the side effects of that controversy. So an interesting couple games coming, and then an all-star break. I mean, it'll be in Philadelphia. Bryce Harper will ham it up. I'm sure he'll come out with like a bat that's painted like a cheesesteak or something. Pander to the fans there. Should be some interesting theater. I just hope none of our guys do the home run derby and screw up their swing for the second half. I hope we all stay out of that. And enjoy the break. Baseball fans will be back with part 2 with Savannah next Friday. And until then, go Nats.